Jonathan, are you ready?
Yep.
Roger, are you good? Check, 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 and check. Excellent. I would like to welcome everyone to the Wednesday, May 14th, 2025 school committee meeting. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is over Michael's shoulder. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could just take a moment of reflection, bow our heads, open our hearts, think about those that are in less fortunate situations than ours. I thank you. All right, I will just say a couple times, I know we have some people coming in. If you do want to make a public comment, there is a sign-in sheet there. Please sign in. We'll be doing public comment shortly. You will have 3 minutes. You stand up, you say your name, your address, and away we go. And yeah, public comment is more than welcome. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, items 2.1 to 2.5?
So moved.
I have a second. All in favor? Aye. Consent agenda is approved unanimously. All right, discussion items. The discussion of the non-resident student policy and tuition rate. This is something that is in our policies. We need to have a discussion on it annually. We have not been doing so. And I think it's for two reasons. One, the program was really just finding its footing. But now we are really running on all cylinders, and it seems to be a high demand opportunity for out-of-district families. So currently our tuition rate is $6,000 per student, and we are entertaining the idea of raising that tuition rate. Do you want to add anything before we have discussion, Dr. Mitchell?
I would love to. Thank you. At our last meeting, Tom?
Yeah.
No, I forgot your name. Did ask if we survey, maybe not annually, but no, generally annually, our tuition families. And we surveyed them last spring, but we've never included, you're right, we've never included an item regarding tuition rate because it is the school committee's program and they determine all the fiscal pieces of this wonderful educational enterprise. And survey, it was the committee is considering a slight increase to our tuition price. This is an your decision to re-enroll in McMinn School. Jonathan, could you bring? So we only had, let's see, because it was a full survey, and we know how busy our parents are, only 5 families, this is a separate pie chart, only 5 families answered all the questions in that survey. So we doubled down and sent just the tuition question. We removed the word slight, I believe. And then we had 18 responses, including our 5 families who filled out the entire, now I've learned my lesson. The shorter a survey, the better. And this is what we have. We also have some sort of extemporaneous feedback from some of the parents. While we fully intend to have both of our children return to Wilbur McMahon next year, any significant increase in tuition would prompt us to reassess our ability to continue. We are truly grateful for the opportunity to be part of such a wonderful school community, but cost is an important consideration for our family. As residents of a town, this is another one of those comments. As residents of a town where we already pay high property taxes without utilizing the public school system, we're mindful of the financial strain that comes with paying for both. Well, this is a choice we've made because we believe in the value Wilbur provides. Substantial tuition increases could impact a decision moving forward. Another comment was, thank you for the tuition opportunity. Another one was, as brief, very satisfied with the school. Another, thank you for another great year. And then another longer one was, I realize that all public schools are about to lose critical funding. I would like to understand what the increase would be if passed and what that increase is applied to. Wilbur McMahon is not a private school, and my understanding is that the out-of-district students help the school to remain open. If you raise the price, I can imagine that many families will feel too burdened by cost to continue. It's a big commitment when you look at K-8, like many of us have. This increase and subsequent increases ultimately will lead to low enrollment again. And then this particular responder mistakenly believed that the town's emerging financial sort of challenges is what prompted the talk about the increases, exactly what Chair Audrey was afraid of. And this is 18 out of our 32 families. And so here it is. Yeah. And some more extemporaneous comments. Could current students be grandfathered in? How much are we looking, how much are you looking to increase? So they answered it and also offered some comments. So 6.3%, no, it would not impact if it's not huge. And then we have depends, and then a flat no if it goes up. And then most are in the, yes, a tuition increase would impact their decision to re-enroll. I didn't expect that to be that high, but I think we're in financial times right now that are sort of turbulent, and so
Correct.
that's what Tom asked for, and that's what Tom got. And I think it was a relatively high response rate. Definitely.
I feel for the turnaround, pretty high response rate. I mean, Tom's familiar with other surveys in town that have had a much longer run time that don't have such a response rate. So 18 of our 32 families is, not 100%, but still over 50%, which is encouraging.
That 18% is, a comment, is essentially where the senior survey,
Correct.
like 18%, marketing says, you don't expect, you only expect a portion. It's just really interesting. That's the same with the senior survey, which kind of go, all right, so how much data are we going to base a decision on?
Great. At this time, I do want to open it up to public comment before the committee does have a discussion regarding this issue. So if anyone wants to speak to this and has not signed in, please do so. Otherwise, you can certainly, it's not standing room only. We can absolutely accommodate you. We just want to make sure that Mariah has the ability to take your name, your address, give you the 3 minutes time, and just record, make sure that we're documenting it properly for the Secretary of State's open meetings. Thanks, Dr. Ryan.
Tom, it was a 56% response rate.
Tom,
18 families, 56%. Yeah.
Tom, you are up to bat. 3 minutes, so hope you rehearsed.
Well, when I testify now.
No, Tom.
Okay. I recommend that the out-of-district tuition rate be increased to a number like maybe 7,000. I know the history of this plan, which is to fill empty seats in the school at our fixed and variable costs. So, we got empty seats. I've lived here for 14 years. My name is Tom Clemmo. My address is 173 John Dyer Road. Don't count that time, okay? I voted for the bond to renovate the school. I consider that a town without an open school is not really a town. And I want to work in what ways I can influence to keep a school open in this town for as long as financially responsible. So that's the baseline. That's what I think. Travis knows that thinking. This plan for out-of-tuition students, last date dated November 4th, 2020, is the principle for bringing students in from out of district to fill empty seats for fixed and variable costs. I know that the cost of a education out of district for anybody not in Little Compton is on the order of $20,000. Penfield School is an example. So where we have progressively decreased our number of out-of-district students to fill those, let's call them empty seats, has grown and grown. We don't need to compete with those private schools like Penfield. You know, we've got some costs. Let's bring students in for those fixed costs, but we don't want to compete with those schools. And, you know, for what I understand, for the forthcoming year, I've heard a number of, well, we're expecting maybe 40 out-of-district students. I've heard a number like higher than that. You know, like, we cannot keep this school open by bringing in numbers and numbers of students from out of district. Some, sure, but if that number is 50 for the forthcoming year, and by
You should finish the thought.
this results for this school calendar year, there were 180 residential students here at the lower school. You know, there's a ratio where you say, wait a minute, this business model isn't really working anymore. And it's important that you guys consider that and say, well, you know what, there's a number where you say, you know, financially, in terms of covering fixed and variable costs, it doesn't make sense. And I think that if we raise the rate to 7, for example, for the forthcoming year, it actually tests with your research data, and thank you very much, Lori, for getting that. It sort of tests like where does the rubber meet the road in terms of people's costs? And, you know, there's some we may lose, but we're not trying to maximize that number of out-of-district students that we bring into the town.
Thank you, Tom. Go ahead, Dr. Mitchell, please.
To be clear, the program existed 2 years before I got here. I administer the program. My office serves as the bursar, which is an increasingly large job, the more kids we have. And we invoice quarterly. Well, contract calls for quarterly payments, but it is the school committee's program. I have nothing to do with the program except administer it. I support it wholeheartedly. But they are the ones who wrote the policy, who determine the tuition rate. I can certainly weigh in. I think I have, giving an authentic voice to the data that I received from families. But ultimately, it is theirs. You know, it is their program. It is not the superintendent's or the principal's program. We administer it. We support it 100%. Principal McKinnon and I go on the record to support it.
You do talk.
Dr. Ryan, did you want to make a comment?
It's my comment. This is the public input period. Is that
This
correct?
is our public input period. It says budget, so I wasn't sure if it was this or if it was for another item. Okay.
I'm gonna follow up Tom's comment. So Andy Ryan, 40 Passion Road. I appreciate Tom's comment. I think though that if you make a decision that you raise tuition and you decrease the numbers accidentally, you didn't need to, you're going to find yourself in a really bad position. And that's very dangerous. I spent 3 hours last night in the budget committee. We had about a $1.5 million hole to fill in our budget. That is a massive hole. And there's gonna be we're gonna have a lot of discussions about that. And I wanted people to be able to come to the budget committee meeting, the hearings and stuff and engage with us on that. But those holes were made because of a bad decision and a mathematical error, right? And so if you raise tuition by too much and people don't come, then you take a program that has generated $240,000 of outside revenue, right? And you cut that in a year where you cannot afford to ask the town for any additional money. Okay, so you should keep that in mind when you're making this decision. You know, I saw on the agenda, Lori's I think you're making a comment about a plan for the upper level elementary school. Is that?
Yes.
So I think we've had a couple of discussions. I've been in the audience when that has come up. We talked about it in the budget committee a little bit. I think those types of ideas are the long-term solvency of the school, right? If we continue to have declining enrollment, at some point, we're gonna be shipping our kids out of district and they're gonna be going, you know, 20, 30 minutes, and they won't be a little Compton student anymore. They're gonna be in Tiverton or another school system. And that would be a travesty. And I think the outside tuition, outside students helps in so many ways, and increase, you know, using our IB program and growing our fabulous reputation and bringing in stronger students to mix with our kids and become friends and have classmates is just probably the best way to go. I would encourage you to very thoughtfully do anything you do regarding this matter, and keep in mind that changes like this need to be well communicated very far in advance so that people can plan. Because we're getting ready to ask the town to accept about 11% tax increase next year because of some bad decisions that were made 4 years ago, right? And so don't fall into that trap of thinking you can make it without having enough information. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. It's not a back and forth, unfortunately, Tom.
So that has to speak for.
Mariah, are there public comments that were received via email?
There is.
Please.
May I read it out loud?
Yes, absolutely.
This was written by Rebecca Lee Hudson and Zach Hudson of 150 Old Bergamarsh Road. Good evening. We are the proud parents of first grade student currently enrolled at Wilbur McMahon. We live in Tiverton and we are out of district. We pay the $6,000 yearly tuition for our daughter to attend WM school. When we went through the enrollment process last June, we inquired about the yearly tuition and if there were plans to increase, as committing to $6,000 a year through 8th grade is a considerable amount of money, especially for public school. We were told that there were not plans to increase that they knew of, because of tuition is not intended to price gouge, but to provide excess funds to the school. The tuition is slightly higher and not comparable with some of the private schools in the area for K through 8, yet Wilbur McMahon still receives funds from RIDE. We value the small class size, the community, and the wonderful staff. We love it at WM and would be disheartened if our daughter was unable to continue to attend at Wilbur McMahon. We understand all too well that enrollment and funding for public schools is decreasing, yet Little Compton doesn't seem to have an issue with enrollment size since they have a small influx of out-of-district students. This is a win-win for everyone. It seems unfair to put a financial burden on the out-of-district parents. Our $6,000 a year is an additional revenue source. This does not include our transportation for our child to and from school, and it does not include lunch, which is around $600 a year. I strongly encourage the school committee to consider the financial strain on families that such an increase would result in, and to weigh the benefit of having out-of-district students to boost enrollment and revenue versus losing funds without them. After much deliberation last year, we decided to enroll our daughter at Wilbur McMahon School after we learned her elementary school had lost significant funding in Tiverton and would most likely close. We are so pleased with her experience and are hopeful that she can continue her public education here with her friends, and that our yearly $6,000 contribution will remain as is and continue to support Wilbur McMahon School and the students who thrive there. Thank you, Rebecca Lee Hudson and Zach Hudson.
Thank you, Brian. Are there others?
That was the only one that came in.
Chair, if I may. Public school enrollment throughout this country, if not the world, has been declining for decades. The birth rate is down nationally. Fewer students are sitting in every district. In Rhode Island, 27 districts, this is 2024 information from, came out October 2025. 27 districts lost students. Enrollment dropped precipitously in some of them. One district, enrollment remained the same. Last year, 8 districts saw an increase, and we're one of them. Central Falls, Johnston, Foster Gloucester, Little Compton, Foster Gloucester, both districts there, Little Compton, North Kingstown, Providence, and Situate. We would not have made this list of the only 8 to have an increase without our non-resident tuition program. We are one of 4, I believe, districts that has a higher enrollment post-pandemic than pre. Have that right here. Yeah. So,
It was on the news.
yes, it was. And it is because of this non-resident tuition program. Do I think we'll have 50, 60 or more, Tom? I don't think so with, like I said, fluctuations in the economy. It seems month to month. Various data points are up and down. But we'd like to hold on to our 32, that's for sure. You know, it's ultimately our decision. I think an increase of a slight one would be fair. But I was at the meeting last night. My jaw dropped a few times, Andy. Nights. And we have been told that the school budget will not be impacted, but this would impact, using these kids would impact our budget.
All right, with that being said, I'll open up to this committee. Does anyone have comments?
I do.
Michael.
I presented some, I've got some notes and that I sent it to Jonathan. If you could put it up on the screen, please. Yeah, so can you expand that? So what I did, we had some research done on different schools close by as well as different parts of the state. And these are the different tuition rates. Friends Academy ranges anywhere from 20 to 22,000. Gordon School, anywhere from 5,500 to 45,000. Moses Brown, 18,000 to 24,500. St. Mike's, 32,000. St. Bill's right here in Portsmouth, 11,175. Wheeler, 42,000. Penfield, 19,135. Providence Country Day, 18,000. 17,000. 24,000, they have different rates, and then St. Andrews is at 26,000. These are the different tuition rates that our parents are currently paying in different schools within Newport County as well as outside of Newport County.
Private schools.
Yeah, do you have any public schools?
I don't know if any public schools that offer this. This is just a basis to show what the tuition rates are. So then
At the top private schools, I mean, in some cases, the country.
doesn't matter. This is what parents are paying.
Like, I mean, if we're talking apples to apples, it does matter, but.
So let me do my presentation.
Sure.
Please.
And then we can have a conversation on that. So the tuition period, John, can you scroll up on that, please? So I put in for the tuition period annually would run from July 1 through June 30th. The payment options would either be paid in full, a 10-month pay, a 3-month pay. An annual tuition rate to be adjusted annually based on the annual budget submitted by the school committee to the town clerk on March 1st. Example of this is if the budget was to increase by 2%, then the tuition rate would increase by 2% for the upcoming school year. An annual tuition rate lock. The current tuition families may lock in the current tuition rate for the upcoming school year for the current tuition rate for the upcoming school year tuition by submitting a non-refundable payment in the amount of $250 by April 1st. Rate lock payment to be deducted from annual tuition rate due beginning in 2026. The tuition rate that I'm proposing is at $6,800, up from the current $6,000, beginning in the 2025-2026 school year. Current tuition families may renew a rate of $6,500 with a payment of $250 by June 30th for the upcoming 2005-2006 26 school year. The tuition rate does not include the cost of special ed, IEPs, 504s, response intervention, multi-tiered systems. Quantity of tuition students with the maximum of 10 tuition students per class. We don't want to, at the end of the day, our obligation is to the residents of this town, and we need to make sure that we have room in our classrooms for our students. Trying to, basically, this allows for a couple of things. It allows for the parents, if they're a current tuition student and they want to come back next year, that gives us a commitment on their part, but at the same time, we're willing to lock in the current rate for next year's school. We've come to the point where the rate has been staying the same, but our expenses keep going up. You know, I understand that it's hard on families, but it also it's hard on school district as well as the people of this town, because they also need to be able to, we also have to pay for all these expenses. So I think it's more than fair that we increase this. And this wouldn't start until next year. But that's my initial 2 cents.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for unpacking that. Is there anyone else on the committee?
I mean, could you actually put that back up for a minute, please? I'm confused about the addendum of this not including the tuition rate does not include costs associated with special education. I don't know what that means, that the family would also have to pay out of pocket for those specialized services.
We don't pay for them now.
Correct.
I don't understand what that means.
Dr. Mitchell can make that clear, because I mean, I could also make it clear, but go ahead, Laura.
But you are providing RTI and MTSS.
All of it.
Yeah,
Correct.
so
It is part of the policy, the school committee's policy, non-resident student policy, that incurring any marginal costs above and beyond is not allowable for out-of-district kiddos, a one-on-one aid, et cetera. But tuition kiddos can have an IEP. They can have an accommodation plan. All of our kids, in one way or another, go through our multi-tiered system of support.
right.
We have student outcome discussions about all kids. So, but I think what Mike means is, cost above and beyond. I think that's what he means. When there's a one-on-one aid, or I think
We just want to be clear, there's no
extraordinary cost.
beyond whatever the tuition would be. I also think to speak to, I like your idea of being responsible to the taxpayer. I also think we need to be sensitive to the families that are currently enrolled and thinking about enrollment. And to be honest with you, I think a 12% increase would kind of put us in the predicament that Dr. Ryan is worried about. I appreciate your presentation, and I appreciate those that have come here to speak tonight. I am the first to admit that this is not in my wheelhouse. I mean, I am not a school district organizer of tuition and understanding of the values, and whether it be district to district, state to state, throughout the country, and how those impacts of raising, lowering, or even accepting tuition impacts the community and the outcomes of the children that we serve. So in an effort to be sensitive to both the stakeholders, who, as Michael stated, and as we all know, because of our low enrollment, we pay a higher premium because we have less kids. But at the same time, we're sensitive to losing that monies to come in, and we certainly can't go before the budget committee and or the stakeholders to ask for a replenishment of lost funds. So I'm going to take a page out of Michael's book and think that if we're asked, what is our ask of appropriation or increase appropriation from the town this year, John?
Percentage increase is 2.62.
2.62%. So I think we could do both sides a solid and show that we are being fiscally responsible and then also aware of the state that the community is currently in with some of the shortfalls that are being presented and the cuts that are being made. And I think that possibly a 3% increase this year, which would be $6,200 overall, is if in a trimester, that puts us at two payments of $66 and a payment of $67 for those that are currently enrolled and or new families. I don't think that that is a backbreaking number, but I think it also shows the community that we are not naive to the fact that there are increases being had and our appropriation does continue to rise, as Michael stated. I want to be very sensitive about this. I don't know what the threshold is. I mean, it could be 10,000. I don't know.
Mhm.
And we don't have the data before us to make that type of decision. Certainly it could be something if there was monies to be found and a consultant to be had, then maybe we explore. But I, as a real estate agent by trade, am not comfortable in testing those waters, knowing that it could create a shortfall that this community, that the school, and then moreover, the community doesn't have the ability to make up. So I think that that kind of meets, you know, halfway. We go a little bit above and beyond for the stakeholders. We're at 2.63. We say 3, and we're sensitive to those that are currently enrolled and thinking about enrollment, because I think that $66, $67 over 3 payments is a nominal ask, even in these financial times. But I do not want to go to a number that would absolutely, we're in this room in a year and saying we went from 32 to 8, because we've been in that situation where we were wondering, man, is 6 even the number? Why is nobody coming here? I think that the teachers have created an environment where our students are thriving, the outcomes are exceptional, and it has that coupled with other districts not investing properly and planning properly has really shined a light on Wilbur McMahon and their outcomes. And I think that it is a target destination for area districts that are facing financial uncertainty and or their child not being able to thrive. And I think that I want to make sure that we keep that ball rolling and the momentum going. I will be disappointed that even if we did do this modest increase, that we had less than we do this year.
Mhm.
I think that that would be, in my mind, that would be devastating, and that would be a fail for not only the committee, but then also the program in which we implemented to offset the continued costs.
I would point out that another interesting part of your presentation was capping the number of students, and maybe that's something that we could discuss in the future. I did hear you when you said that, and I think that that is something that is valid as well.
Correct. And Lori, can you speak to that? So and John possibly, and maybe even Sean, in terms of, and you know, Tom brought it up, like we wake up and we have, you know, 65, 70 students. Like, what does that look like in our classrooms? How does that affect and impact the teacher? How does that impact their ability to provide the learning experience, which is creating the outcomes that we're all thrilled with? And we certainly want to be sensitive to that, because one of the driving forces, I think, with other districts and parents trying to send their children here is our student-teacher ratios.
Well, I think we need to look at the facts. The facts are our student outcomes have increased almost dramatically as our non-resident student enrollment rose. These kids bring with them all of their gifts and their energy and different perspectives. And so that's incontrovertible. When we saw our enrollment rise, we saw our achievement rise in ELA, in math, in science. It's the principals, he uses his discernment. He's looking at grade 1 out of district numbers right now. And the good news is we haven't signed any contracts with any families. We have dozens of families waiting for you to land somewhere tonight. And so sort of a little bit late in the game. We certainly don't want to leave tonight without some sort of number.
No, we'll put a bow on it in some fashion.
So far, we only have 1 grade, and that is kind of shooting high. And that's our current kindergarten and next year's first graders. The other grades, no, they're pretty balanced. The higher we go up, the fewer non-resident kids are in those grades, upper elementary and middle. And I think it's because people started coming from next door in the primary grades and elementary as Fort Barton was sort of imperiled. And so we have a preponderance, we have a lot of kids in K 1 and 2 right now, not a lot beyond that. So we've never been faced with looking at those numbers as an impediment, or, oh my gosh, we'd have to hire another first grade teacher. We're almost there now. That's why we've capped it. Just in that 1 grade.
I do want to be sensitive, Ms. Sullivan. It's okay. You can certainly, I get it. It's all good. Would you like to make your public comment? Please, welcome. It's all good. You get a bite of the apple, as President McHugh would say.
Laura Sullivan, 401 King Road, Tiverton. My daughter's in kindergarten here. We are having an amazing year with us to go. I think my concern, even if it's just the $200 this year, is what is it next year? What is it the next year? What is it? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, we're signing up from now till 8th grade, and the grade my to pull her out of here. But it really, especially for families with multiple children, gives you kind of that uncertainty. And I know we were never promised 6,000 every year. But then especially to see his numbers of like, maybe it jumps up 1,000, maybe next year it's 1,500, like you just never know. And I would hate to pull her out in 4th grade, 5th grade and try to move her somewhere else because we can't afford it anymore,
Yes.
So just, thank you.
Follow up with that.
Well, I was gonna, go ahead, Mike.
Right. So based on the numbers that my $6,800 number, if our budget was to increase, that would be, and we based it on the budget as I stated, in a 2%, that's $136 increase from 1 year to another year. So it's not $1,000 increase every year. It's 2% of whatever our start. What I would like to see is the starting number to be at $6,800 for any new students that are coming in next year. I'm also willing to say, to help the parents and the families that are currently enrolled in our school, we give them a break, that we ease this in at the $6,500. So for us to come back to the families and say, we're going to raise the tuition $800 to $1,000 every year, we're going to sink this program. I am well aware of that. I'm not asking for that. All I'm asking for is a small percentage to keep up with our expenses that we have to incur as a district to run this.
Yes.
$136 based on is 2% from 1 year to another. So I'm not asking for large increases. I do think that our tuition rate is low to start. I think it's very low to start. I know some of the comments were made that there were some of the, higher private schools, but there's not a lot to pull from. I needed some sort of data to pull from. So as long as we run our school tight, our increases will be low.
And I think that's what makes this conversation so difficult is
Correct.
there aren't comps. Like
Correct.
this is something that
Well,
is its own beast, really.
But we're incurring, as the residents of this town, between around $26,000 per student already. So if you want to talk about comps, let's start with here. Start with Little Compton. This is what we incur per student.
Correct. And why is that, Michael?
We have all of our overhead and we have low enrollment, but at the same time,
Low enrollment.
but those numbers are still in line with some of these schools of what they're paying for their tuition.
I'm flattered that you compared us to those schools, just to be clear.
What's that?
I'm flattered that you compared us to those schools, just to be clear.
Well, Travis, we come here,
But I
how
think-
many times we come here and we hear about we're a five-star school and how great we are. So why shouldn't we be being compared to those schools?
Because we're not a private school.
It doesn't matter. It does not.
That does.
I think if we want to keep attracting a diverse, rich
Yes.
population of students, it does matter.
Correct. And
It
I'm
doesn't
gonna,
matter whether we're private or we're public. If we are good, we shouldn't, the label shouldn't make a difference to us, whether we're a private or a public school. If we're being told how great we are and all our test scores are, we're providing a service, a great service, and that service comes at a cost.
I hear you. I think as parents who don't have to pay an out of
district.
district rate, it's easy to sit on that side of the table and say that. But if we were on the other side, I'm sure we'd feel very differently. And these people are our friends and neighbors,
Correct. We see them at birthday parties. Our kids play sports with them. They participate in theater together. They hang out on weekends. They've now become, as I've shared and as Amy and others have shared. I mean, Duke has friends in Westport, in Tiverton, in Portsmouth, in Fall River, in New Bedford, in Dartmouth. I mean, they're not all from this district, but they're all from the interactions that he has. And if we can bring more of those folks into this community to, enhance their child's outcomes, I'm all for it. I'm an idea person, so I'm going to take an idea from Ms. Sullivan. What if we were to say everybody that's currently enrolled, because I'm sensitive to what Lori says, we're bursting at the seams at the K to 1. We want to capture these students young, and we want to have them all the way to 8th grade. And if we create an economic uncertainty for families where A, you don't know if there's tuition going to be raised, what that number is and how that looks, I think it could be very off-putting. So what if we were to say, if you're currently enrolled in Wilbur McMahon School, you would be at the rate that you're enrolled in. So in this case, we're starting at a baseline of $6,000. So the 32 members that are out of district, or 34, whatever it is, would be at $6,000 for their time here at Wilbur McMahon. That being said, if you are a new student, we have the increase based on the appropriation that we asked before the town. And I mean, we could make it percentage, or we could put it, like I said, the 3%, and all new students would be at the 62%, knowing that or 6,200, knowing that would be their rate for their duration at Wilbur McMahon School. If the appropriation goes up next year, we take the 6,200, that's grandfathered in. I mean, no. See, you're making a face, Dr. Mitchell. Talk to me.
Well,
I like the idea of creating economic certainty for the parents that are enrolled. So whether you enroll at 6,000 or in Michael's case, I mean, down the road, it could be 6,800. And the juice might be worth the squeeze to know I'm sending my kid to Wilbur McMahon, starting in kindergarten at 6,800, and I know I'm going to wake up when they're in 8th grade at 6,800.
if I may.
Please.
The policy does say you have to discuss the tuition rate every year. It doesn't say you have to raise it every year. And I'm very compassionate when it comes to our non-resident families. Maybe it shouldn't be raised every year. Likely should be raised a bit.
But then I think, to your point and to Ms. Sullivan's point and to other parents, it's like, are they going to raise it this year? I don't want that to be a topic of dinner table discussion. I like the idea of how was your day at school? Not the kid gets up from the table and mom's looking at dad going, you think they're going to increase it this year? Think we're still going to be able to send them next year? I don't want that.
You want to lock that into the policy?
I would like to lock it. It's something of those lines into the policy where we're sensitive to the people that are currently enrolled. If you're a new enrollee, we come in at what the appropriation is, and away we go. And it locks them in. This way, they're incentivized to stay here rather than the unknown of like, am I going to wake up and is it going to go up 12%, 10%, 6%, 5%?
Or if I may.
And to your point, we can discuss it every year.
Right.
So if the body of this changes and somebody thinks they have a better idea, or we're realizing, hey, that was a bad idea, we can amend it.
They tweak the policy or keep the tuition rate. It was never in there for a reason, so that it could be up for debate. I mean, I like where this is going, you know. It's not going too high. I like that. And those of us, I wish, you know, Principal McKinnon were here, those of us who know these families and work with these families as the bursar or the principal or whatever, we don't distinguish between Wilbur and McMahon kids and our tuition kids at all. That we make absolutely no distinction.
Yeah, even as parents, we don't.
And I think this tuition program is such a brilliant stroke of innovation with Pat McHugh and that particular school committee. And it's really an act of grace, you know, to save this school and to give area communities, families choice. And not all families have a choice for an elite private school, but choice for one of the best schools in the state, public schools in the state. Yeah, I mean, it is an act of grace. I don't pay taxes here in Little Compton. I do pay them next door in Westport, happily. And I know we have to, you know, look at the grace given this particular program for the past 8 years. I just see no drawbacks to it. An increase that is even slightly higher than the pain point that some families can endure, especially now. We'll see a drop. Definitely see a drop in enrollment. I have.
That's why, I mean, like I said, I don't want to be in this room next year and learn that it's rolling back.
So, Travis.
Go ahead, Michael.
John, on average, what has been our increase over the past 5 years, percentage-wise, year after year?
You normally keep it at around 3%. If I had to average it out, it's probably around 3%.
3% over the past 5 years. Okay.
And I think, go ahead, Michael.
So I guess, again, going back to where our percentage is tied to what our budget is not a huge ask. I used the 2% based on 6,800 at $136. You know, I have to disagree with you a little bit, Laura, as far as the 32 tuition students made our school better, because we need to give our kids credit that are here for making our school better. So I don't want to base that because our 32 kids made us better.
But if I may,
Sure, go right ahead.
smaller numbers when it comes to student achievement are very volatile. The more kids we have in each grade level, those numbers of kids achieving or exceeding proficiency across these three state assessments and learning, you know, the assessment just asks the kids to show what they know, show that they have learned those standards in those particular areas so that they can progress to the next grade, et cetera, et cetera. And so the volatility of small numbers is really the issue. If you have 8 kids in a cohort or 17 kids in a cohort, you can balance the variables across a larger cohort than you can across a small cohort and value that cohort size. So it's not that the kids themselves, it's the larger enrollment, the larger the grade level is, the more the data point lands more gently around all of the kids, the learning spectrum. I'm trying to be elegant and eloquent here without making value judgments about children. That's certainly not where I want to go with this. A larger sample is less volatile when it comes to student data.
Compound it. Just say you put your kid in a kindergarten at 6,000 and we compound it at 3% a year. By the time they're in 8th grade, they're paying 7,600. And what I like about the suggestion I made is if we lock the parents in at the number they're in, we're going to find out what that threshold is with our annual increase. And Lori and Principal McKinnon are going to be able to come into this room and say, hey, I know we did 3% for new families. We didn't get anybody, or it's down 50%. Well, then we find the number while also retaining the families that are currently in here at a rate. I mean, we might find out this year that 6,200 is too much if we did the 3%. I'm just saying, I don't know. I don't know.
Mom knows.
But at the same time, Jarvis, there is no guarantee that anybody that enrolls in kindergarten is going to stay through 8th grade. We have no guarantee on that.
No, we certainly don't. But I think that it would incentivize them if they have a good experience, as Ms. Sullivan stated with Ms. Sagala, and then that experience continues. There's a better than not chance we're going to capture a kid, not for 1 year, but for the duration of their stay, especially once they hit middle school. Because I don't have a middle schooler yet, but I can tell you right now, to tell your kid, great news, you're going to a new school once they hit that middle school age, it's got to be an incredibly difficult conversation to have. So if we capture them as we are with our numbers being incredibly high in kindergarten and 1st grade, I think it's the intent of those parents that if this works for my child, I'm going to go the course with them to grade 8. I mean, sure, we're going to pick up people along the way, 2nd, 4th, 5th, whatever the case is. But I think if we can capture them at that early level, create the economic certainty that they're going to be at a rate for the duration of their stay, I think that that's going to be a huge benefit to one of the variables that parents consider when choosing Wilbur McMahon School, knowing, hey, whether it's 6,000 for those that are currently enrolled, or this year, Lori's, if we made the increase, she's going to say, hey, this is the increase. And if people say, great, knowing I'm locked in at that number, I think that that's going to be a benefit for us and our protecting our enrollment. Go ahead, John.
Well, if you look at item 6.1 on tonight's agenda, the superintendent's going to be talking about a charter middle school. What happens in those situations, so a student coming in from Tiverton, the district is going to wind up paying Little Compton the rate that's set by RIDE, which just came out recently, and I think Tiverton is probably going to be around $15,000 or $16,000.
Yes, it's 15.
Exactly. I did share that with.
So the parent is no longer going to pay at that level. The district is going to wind up paying to the district. So I'm not sure locking it in till grade 8.
Right.
But maybe K through 5.
Yeah, well, that-
alternative.
Correct, because as you said, if that charter designation ever was to occur, it then takes the burden off of the parent.
Absolutely.
It puts the burden onto the district in which they're coming from, which is twofold. One, it benefits the parent that sends their child to this district. And 2, it'll benefit our bottom line because instead of $6,000, we'd be getting 15.5 through the district.
Right.
Which, as we know, every district is responsible for the children that live within the district.
Can I just make sure I have the information correct?
Sure.
Sort of run it back really quick. So we lock in folks that are here at the rate that they're currently at, and then we're going to decide tonight on a number for an increase for new enrollees for 26. After that, it'll be a discussion at the appropriate time whether there'll be an increase or not for 27, 28 and moving forward.
Correct. You're dead on. That's exactly. Go ahead, Sean.
My recommendation for the vote this evening, if that's the direction the committee decides in, simply set the rate for those people who are currently enrolled, those students who are currently enrolled for the upcoming year, and not engage in this discussion about locking in at this point in time. I think that'd be more appropriate for a policy review. Since on the agenda tonight, we are only discussing the rate for the upcoming year, but you still can differentiate between those who are currently enrolled, if you want to essentially grandfather them in with no increase, and anyone who is seeking to be newly enrolled at a higher rate, whatever.
I don't think it's, and also it's not a locked in rate in perpetuity through the next 8 years. It's, it is locked in from today through the end of their time here, through 8th grade, anybody who's enrolled now, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is that?
No, it's not currently, no. We're voting on it.
I'm saying that
If you were to present the vote.
That would be
The reason I'm advising you not to do that this evening is because if you do that and people act upon this vote, assuming or believing that they're locked in, if this committee were to ever change its mind, it may not be able to.
Yeah.
From a legal perspective. So I think you're here tonight to set rates for next year, do that and have a larger discussion at the appropriate time when we have policy on the agenda to discuss a potential of locking in people for the duration of their time. Yeah.
We could set a rate for currently enrolled families into next year versus new enrollees into next year.
That's correct.
But Sean, at the same time, if we're talking rate and we want to put parents' minds at ease, and we say that this is what the increase will be every year, that falls under the tuition rate. That's part of the agenda.
Sorry, say that again, Mike.
You're saying not to lock in rates going forward. What I'm saying is that if we put down that it's going to increase by whatever the budget is to increase, that is part of the rate. We're setting the rate going forward. You're saying not to do that. You're saying not to lock things in. I'm not giving a number that we're locking in. It's a percentage. You know, what I hear right now is everybody wants to lock things in. How many vendors are going to lock in their rates for us for the next 5 or 8 years?
That's what he's saying. He's advising us not to do that.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying is that's been the discussion. You're worried about what the increase is to the family, but how about our increases as a district? Our rates of our overhead is going to continue to go up for the next 8 years. You talk about compounding from now to 8th grade. What are we doing with our budget? Our budget compounds 3%.
No, we're in agreement
Locking in
with you.
for a K through 8 is I would not be for that. I don't think that makes sense to me. We don't, I mean, we're projecting 8 years from that when, like, I just don't think we can, I mean, especially given what we know about where the town is right now, like, I just think that is ill-advised as somebody who balances my home checkbook, but like.
Right. And to your point of why this discussion even happened, and Sean's point, we have to have this discussion next year. So it makes most sense to do, whether it's 2 votes or a piggyback vote of currently enrolled students are at X rate for next year, and newly enrolled students will be at X plus name the.
Yeah, I think that's an appropriate motion.
And I supplied that. I gave it.
That's what he's saying, not to do like a long-term thing, do it for just next year. And then we can create a policy if we decide regarding how this plays out. But at least this creates, because of that's basically our policy. It's not set up to be this long-term projection.
Right.
So if we were to implement a policy that did have that, it would be a different story. But that's what Sean's saying. He's like, you can't project out because the policy says you need to discuss this every year.
So we still need to decide the percentage increase, if at all, for new enrollees.
If that's the direction the committee wants to go in, yes.
And I think that what you're proposing, Chair, at 3%, in terms of keeping with the rate that we're going to the town with, does sort of make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, especially in this instance, like I said at the beginning of this, I'm not an expert at this. I would like some more data compiled. I appreciate Michael's report. I would really like to see if there's other school districts, which I'm sure that there are, whether it be in New England or the country at large, because as Lori said, districts across the country are dropping enrollment. I mean, there's some schools in some states where they're going to school 4 days a week. I mean, because they just don't have, whether it's the resources or the student, whatever the case is. So we can't be I mean, there's no way we're the only public school in the country that takes out of district tuition.
The only in the state.
Okay, we're small, 39 cities and towns. I get my head around that. But I mean, I would just like a little bit more research before we were going a long term. And as to Sean's point, our policy says that we need to do this annually at the current, as it's written. And then moreover, I believe that the 3% increase is sensitive to those that are looking to enroll anew, and then also fiscally responsible to the stakeholders which will be going before, or which we went before the budget committee and asked for a 2.62% increase. This exceeds that number.
So on a $500 increase over a 10-month pay, that's $50 more a month.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not interested in I don't want to find out. I mean, Michael, if you want to, I'd be happy to, if we could find consulting dollars, and I'll chair you on that committee to go down that rabbit hole and provide the data of every public school in the country, what the rubric looks like, how it impacts if they drop tuition, raise it 500, raise it X%, and what that means for the district, the community, and the outcomes of the students. I'll absolutely send you on that. But tonight we don't have that amount of data. And I want to be sensitive to those that are looking to enroll, those that are currently enrolled, and the stakeholder. And I think that by keeping the existing at 6,000, increasing the new students to a 3% increase, putting them at 6,200, does both for fiscal year 26. Am I saying that right, John? Fiscal year 26.
So our proposed increase from this year to next year is what for the school?
3%.
Dollar-wise, how much is that? What's our budget increase from this year, from the current budget to next year's budget?
The budget, I believe, is a little over 3%.
Dollar-wise, like what's the dollars?
Thought I knew this. It was. I'm thinking of last year's was 323. You have it, John? I think I have it.
Ask from the town is 2.62%.
210,000.
That I sent Jonathan, yeah.
On the total expenditures?
The
Seems low.
Or just the town.
That seems low, John.
Town ask.
2.62 increase in town appropriation was 210,750.
Yeah, yeah, it's different because that includes revenue. The only one includes revenue.
I'll just wait for Mr. McNamee and we'll see if anyone will make a motion on this.
You're just at discussion, your motions for later this evening.
Oh, yes, this is true.
Yeah. Like me, Jack.
Mr. McNamee, you think you'll have that for your finance report?
I have it right now. Appreciate your patience.
He's always.
292,251 was the increase in the total expenses from last year's budget to FY26 budget.
I'll increase it, what was the ask?
That's it.
The increase in the ask from the town was
Just wait till they uncover what's in the budget, buddy.
Mhm.
I'm asking people for this kind of advantage.
so the increase in the ask from the town was 210,713.
Who they try to ship in here? I'm saying, what was it? Say it again.
The increase in the town appropriation from the FY25 budget to the 26 was 210,713.
The ask was different from the overall.
think we have other revenues that we're picking up, tuition revenues. that
Tuition
offset
revenues,
this.
finance. Tight budget.
Yeah, I heard it was actually the praises of the school's budget were sung last night, I heard.
So, yeah.
All we said was it's the only normal budget.
And also the only budget in which the finance director reports every month at every meeting. So fairly transparent here at Wilbur McMahon School.
So,
All right, I appreciate the public comment and the discussion regarding that. We're going to move on to the spotlight of excellence, and Dr. Mitchell is covering for Principal McKim.
I missed my slide check, my buddy, but he left a nice presentation. So many things have happened since our last meeting. All we have to do is look at our social media feed and say, golly gee, does that school do a lot of great things? And I think the school is resurrecting great things from years ago. Mr. Whitehouse, I believe, made a big to-do out of Earth Day, and we have definitely taken that baton and run with it. So all of our kids, K-7, did all sorts of work on site, and our 8th graders headed over to the South Shore and picked up trash, and good time was had by all, and our planet is smiling. Thank you. Oh, grade 5. Those young scientists, they had their little eggs since the beginning of the school year or so, and they they released them at Simmons Mill Pond, and with some local naturalists, etc. Pretty cool beans. Our 7th graders went to the Museum of Fine Art in Boston, and just looking at the photos that their teachers sent to Jack McKinnon's assistant, Darlene Goodrow. Oh my gosh, they loved it. They were just in awe. Next. Thank you. On May 1st, our 8th grade community project showcase took place. We also had a showcase last year and the year before, but they weren't full-fledged. You can't have the full scope of the community capstone, the grade 8 community project capstone showcase until you have one full year as an international baccalaureate school. I did not attend this, but I did get to see the kids drive around up in the library a bit ago, and they did the most extraordinary work. The International Baccalaureate has our students pushing into the community and making an impact, and our kids definitely did. From helping terminally ill children at Hasbro, one of our kids focused on that, to supporting veterans and their mental health struggles, also the overflow of animals in shelters. Our kids just displayed the breadth and depth of their talents, interests, and affinities through this capstone project. We are so proud. Beekeeping, they raised awareness around so many issues and impacted their local, greater, and rural community. Pretty proud of them, that's for sure. Thank you, Jonathan. Law Day is a big day here at Wilbur McMahon. We had Chief Justice Paul Suttel. We also had Senior Assistant City Solicitor Kelsey McDonald, Rhode Island Public Defender. I'm getting these names mixed up. Please forgive me. Rhode Island Chief Justice Paul Suttel, Senior Assistant City Solicitor Kelsey McDonald, Rhode Island Public Defender. I think we're missing a name there. Sheriff Captain Chris Riley and Law Clerk Attorney Jillian O'Brien. That was a big day. I think I know we have some aspiring lawyers. I think we're waiting to hear from Harvard University. One of our students has applied for a summer internship. And so hopefully, what's that?
You didn't get any degrees for that? No? It went right above you to Harvard.
Didn't make the cut.
We got go-getters here. We got go-getters.
One of our 8th graders, and as the mother of a lawyer, it's good to see our students aspiring to such a great profession. Next. Jonathan, thank you. Johnny Kay was here, motivational speaker for our grades K-4 about being a good citizen, showing kindness to others, nature and yourself. This was a very weather challenged spring. Every morning I would check my phone and Jack McKinnon would write, uh-oh, indoor recess, uh-oh, indoor arrival. Like, no, these kids are going to go batty. So Johnny Kay came right at the right moment. Right when hands-on behaviors are starting during those discretionary times in our school. Next. Oh gosh, field trips. Our kids arrived here this morning, our 8th graders at 4, and then they headed to DC. They've had a full day already. I'm sure they're ready to bunk out, or at least their chaperones are. And when I got that call, the text that their plane had landed because it was at Reagan. And that's been a problematic airport for a bit. And then these others are upcoming, Plymouth Plantation, and our kids go to the State House. Another group's going to Simmons Mill. The Compton Historical Society is always a big hit, right in our backyard. Amazing resource, so enriching. And our wee ones are going to Buttonwood Zoo. And I think, oops, but a lot of stuff going on. We have some student exhibitions going on and reading week. We have our RICAS, Next Generation Science Assessment Reward. Our kids go to Longplex next week, and we've reserved much of that facility for them. I will be there as well with some sneakers on, hiding in a corner. No, just kidding. We've got Reading Week coming up, Engineering Expo, Senior Walkthrough, where it's when our Portsmouth High School and our parochial and private school seniors come back and say hi to their teachers and show our kiddos. This is the end game, this beautiful gown and mortarboard, and a post-high school plan that suits you. Then we have an 8th grade dinner and dance that is being held at Secundit Vineyard in their barn, away from any adult beverages, that's for sure. So I didn't even know there was a barn somewhere on the grounds. Jack did a site visit last week and he gave it a thumbs up, so I trust him. Yep, our student council has decided not to have it here. They're doing their own fundraising. They have totally thrown their trump card down, and they want it their way. And we said, fine, just do it yourselves. And they are. And then we have our field day and parade of history, our 8th grade awards coming up, graduation, our civic speakers. We have almost double digit, maybe 8 or 9 kids out of the 20 kids in Rhode Island chosen. 8 are from this little teeny school. They were just amazing. And then June 18th, some of our teachers will say that cannot come fast enough. No, just kidding. That's the last day of school. Our school year is September through June, but the pace is punishing for kids, families, and teachers and staff. And so it's been a wonderful school year so far, and we expect it to end with the same sort of joy and feeling of community and shared goals and achievements. And I think that's all he gave us. Yay!
You'd be proud. That was a heavy lift. You did well. There's a ringing somewhere with pride.
Yeah.
And while you are rolling,
He might be watching.
he might be.
Yeah.
Someone can hello if you're watching, and you can roll right into your superintendent report.
Okay. You did remind me, Dr. Ryan, that it was right here when the budget committee was meeting and asked the business manager and me to present our budget and defend it. And I was waxing poetic about the outcomes in this school and the culture and the distinctions. And it was the newest member of the budget committee, I believe her name is Allison Ward. She turned to me and said, has the school department considered creating an international baccalaureate charter middle school? And I was stunned, and I answered her very quickly. I said, yes. The past few years, the business manager and I have been talking about ways to future-proof this precious village school. And the thought of a charter, always came up. I never really researched it. And I didn't think that night when I said that it would be received well. This is sort of a legacy school. A lot of students here, their parents also came here, and it's a precious sort of memory and sort of, you know, a nostalgic future that they want for their own kids as students in this school. But I received positive feedback about researching the charter. In my Friday night memos to all, I know I pounced you with a lot of information. And so I called RIDE, and I called the deputy commissioner, and I said, hey, what do we do if we want to research creating a charter within our school? And she said, okay, let me hook you up with Steve Osborne. He's the student opportunity officer at RIDE. And he came here yesterday at 2:00. We met. And I did a lot of research. I'm a researcher by nature and trade. And so I had a lot of questions projected up on the board. He answered every single one. And, you know, he really did launch into the fact that public school enrollment is declining everywhere. And he's hearing from districts all over the state asking, how do we keep our kids in? You know, they're going here for CTE pathways at other high schools. They're homeschooling, et cetera. He said, you're the first superintendent to call on us. How do we bring more kids? How do, not how do we build walls and keep people in our school, but how do we break down those walls and move forward and future-proof our educational enterprises? And so he turned to me at one point and said, here you have a school with a great reputation, a 5-star international baccalaureate school. He came here, I think right about the time that the commissioner did, and he was expecting a state filled with IB schools. And he knew a good 10 or 12 were embarking on it at different times. And he said, you're the only one that followed through. All the others fell off the path. He said, so here you are with a 5-star school, an IB middle school, and it's unenrolled. It's under-enrolled. And so, and that just, like I said, that's exactly why I need you here. How do we use and capitalize off of the incredible work of our staff, the support of our families and community, and the diligence and focus of our kids? And he said, okay, well, here it is. And he went through the different types of charters. I made it clear that no one has any appetite for a charter that would do anything to our staff, that would change our staffing in any way, shape, or form. This staff produces. Okay? The data is there. And so he said there are 3 different types. A district charter. This hasn't been done since 2000. No district has worked with RIDE to create a district charter in 25 years. There were only 2 in the state, Times 2 Academy in Providence and an apprenticeship exploration school in Cranston. Those are the only 2 district charters. And then there are independent charters. 80% of the state's charters are those, and they're not tied to a town, like Kingston Hill or Achievement First, et cetera. And then there are mayoral charters, and that requires 3 towns, cities and or towns to have mayors or town administrators sign off. And so they're separate entities. So the district charter is what I said, that sticks the landing for this community. It is the same teaching staff, the same collective bargaining agreement, CBA, the same union, all of it. Nothing changes except governance. Okay, the school committee still overlooks, it provides oversight for everything. And so you're sort of at that 3,000 level, looking over everything. And then a governing body would be under you for that particular middle school in this instance. And there's always a school committee, even with any district charter. And so, and that governance is more like, he said, the board of a nonprofit. And he said that we would need an administrator separate, one K4 or K5, and then the other one for the charter school. The money would follow the children. Okay? We could decide where we open up those walls. Is it Tiverton? Is it also Portsmouth? Is it Bristol Warren? We decide our catchment. Wherever our catchment will be, it cannot be in Boston, so Massachusetts kids coming in would not be a part of that charter.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up a
No, I'm
point.
just saying,
If
could you?
Tiverton and all the other districts are paying 15 to 17, 18, and then you have someone from Southwestport paying 6, 7, or, there would be, an inequity there. And so I brought everything up. He said, it is weird that you guys have a tuition program and, you had never heard of it before. And so he did outline the process. And he said a letter of intent would go out in June to the Department of Ed. A full application they would want by mid-July. There would be 2 public comment hearings in each community that you're drawing from, including your own. So RIDE runs those, okay? So this particular gentleman runs those, Steve Osborne. He would hold community forums in Tiverton to give those stakeholders a say, because that's the controversial part, pulling from other districts around you. That doesn't seem very neighborly, and it would certainly impact their schools, the number of schools they have, the number of students, et cetera. And so he said the application process is pretty easy, and seeing that we've gone through the IB process, which he feels is, the highest lift and the heaviest lift that any district could go through. And I asked, of course, as I always do, is there any money to help us? He said, well, there's $15 million in a federal grant to support municipalities or any group, for any sort of charter. And so the planning costs would be taken care of. And he said transportation, I asked about buses, and he said transportation would be provided by the charter. So you'd have to push into those communities. And our transportation ecosystem on in the whole East Bay is so interconnected. And so we talked about a timeline, and he advised, spend this next year doing exactly what I'm doing tonight. All of us talking. Is this the right move? Is this the way to go? And then if at the end of the year, we decide that, it should be a go, then apply. And then the process takes a year. And so it wouldn't be 26, it wouldn't be 27, it would be 28, 27, 28. A thoughtful, intentional process. There has to be buy-in from 2/3 of our families and 2/3 of our staff. Otherwise, it's not going to fly. And so I do believe the statute says some sort of ballot or vote, I don't know if it's formal or informal. And so that's where we are right now. And yeah, this is just phase 1 of a year-long research sort of discovery process. So I think if you want me to go further with this, then I will work with Steve to come up with the just what constitutes the sort of, he wants us to have some sort of stakeholder representation during the research process that meets. The subcommittee of the school committee, it doesn't matter. He said it could be something tied to the school committee or something very informal from district admin. And he left about 3:30. He had never been to our school before, thinks it's absolutely stunningly beautiful. And he feels that you have an under-enrolled, extraordinary school with an elite middle school. People would, knock down doors to get here. That's his view. And then the other piece is most middle schools are 5 through 8. And we originally wanted to do a 5 through 8 MYP, middle years program. We settled on a 6, 7, 8 because we had the pandemic and, you know, how much can we ask teachers and kids and families to do, pivot. And so I think our next step is to ask IB if post-certification, we can fold in grade 5. And then we would have a true middle school, 5 through 8, if that's what you want. And then you'd have 4 years of high revenue stream, consistent 15 to 20,000 per year. No parent has to pay for it, except for your taxes. So that's it. That's all I have.
Lots to discuss and possibly vote on in the future, but it's not on the agenda tonight, is it?
It's not even a discussion.
But hey, Dr. Mitchell, thank you so much for pursuing that. John McNamee, and certainly Allison Ward. I was in the room. She just threw it out there. I know she's
Like, what?
like she's been in education, so she kind of knew of this.
Right. Yes, I don't know. But John and I had been talking about it behind closed doors. That weren't quite there. And that was it. That was a defining moment at that meeting. You were there.
Yeah, I was.
It was okay.
The budget committee was very receptive.
I was standing at the time and like, yes, we have. But certainly it's not something we wanted to talk about until Steve Osborne from RIDE came here and laid it all out. And he did.
Okay.
He would serve as a consultant from start to finish.
So, I mean, you just threw a lot at us. I hear,
No discussion. There's no discussion on it. I mean, if you've got questions, you can direct it at the end, but this isn't a discussion topic. She's just sharing her.
well, she's reporting on a meeting, right?
Well, yeah, Sean, I mean, how should this just be direct? Because I feel like there was a lot to unpack.
Yeah, no,
I've got questions,
you can ask,
but I don't want to see.
you can ask questions of the superintendent.
Okay,
That's appropriate under the agenda item.
that's fine. Then go ahead.
So where does the superintendent fall into this? Because I heard it seemed like a lot more staff involved with this. And how does that all play? You talk about the 3,000, us being at 3,000 feet, and then you talk about another group of people below that. I mean, how does that structure change? As far as where the position, the current thing that we have now compared to?
I don't know. And even Steve Osborne said, I've worked with several charter schools. Yours would be the first research that I'm doing, he's saying that himself, into a district charter school, because one has not been created or chartered in 25 years. He's only been here, I think, 6 or 7 years in the state. So he didn't have all the answers. He certainly had, he could, and I think I sent you those distinctions. I sent you some links and so forth. I like you, I can't quite conceptualize how it would work. And that's why he likened it to a small nonprofit board. And the bylaw, all of that would be constructed during the application process. How are those people chosen? Just like the SIT team, that's also a state mandated group. So I'm trying to think, if you give me a minute, let me just see, I'll give you his exact quote. So that is a good question, Mike. Okay. Create a group that will turn into the board. Okay, so that would be the research group. And almost like, similar to a nonprofit. And we all sit on boards of some kind, but it'll be interesting to see how it fleshes out in the research. But the school committee is budget and all of that stuff. I would imagine the board would submit a budget to the school committee for that separate entity, yet it's all the same staff and the same CBA, the same collective, NEA. Otherwise, no one has the stomach for any other type of charter. And you could have a steady revenue stream in perpetuity.
Like that. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. McNamee, working hard, working overtime.
All superintendents that took all my time, I'll make this great. Yeah, we're looking right now at, well, we finished 10 months through April 30th. We're looking at a small deficit of about 47,000, but again, that's conservative because there are still items in there for potential maintenance issues and things like that that will ferret out over the next couple of months. So I'm expecting that we could probably bring that down to a much smaller deficit for the current year. And really no changes since last month's report. The only issue we have now is when we talk about the capital reserve fund, and you've got that in your packet. There's a question as to whether that 30% investment tax credit on the solar is still in play. So I was talking to an energy consultant that I use in another district and asked him about that. And his comment was that if they're stopping wind turbine projects in the middle, what does that do for your 30% investment tax credit in terms of a priority? So I am going to have a discussion with RIDE, because what we can do is we can take that 30% that we thought we were going to get, submit that for housing aid, in which case we would get 35% of that back. So we'd be leaving 65% on the table. In the event that the investment credit does go through and I'm able to file a tax return and get that credit, we can probably then just restore RIDE with the housing aid that they provide us. But we would never be able to go back a year after the project is complete and get that investment credit. I mean, get the housing aid if we don't get that, if in the event we don't get that investment credit. So the chief operating officer of RIDE sits on the Lincoln School Committee, so I have an ear. So I'm going to, and we also have one in Lincoln that we've got an investment credit out there, so we're going to have to make that decision there as well too. So, so that's going to skinny down a little bit of the monies that we had planned on for capital going forward. But later on, I've got a proposal to make a transfer in there to hopefully mitigate some of that, not all of it, but at least some of that shortfall.
Yeah, it's outside of your hands. It's a federal government issue. What can you do?
Yeah, we've been notified that the account that I opened up with the IRS is established, and it's the same letter that we received in Lincoln as well, but they need to give us a registration number in order to file the tax return, in order for them to give us the investment credit. That investment credit can be sold as well, and I thought about that, but until we get that investment credit, we're not going to be able to sell it until we get it sold. So,
Charles, question for you. So hypothetically, if you have to go the housing route to get the 35% reimbursement, what does that leave us that we will not get? What will that end up costing us at the end? You're talking 65, you're talking.
So 168, 175 was the total amount of the investment credit. So we get 1/3 of that if we went to housing aid. And so we'd be leaving
100K.
100, yeah. Maybe a little bit more on the table.
So then that would end up meaning that, because last month you reported that the solar system ended up costing us 21,000. At the end of the day, after we got all of our credits and what have you,
I'd be 121 or, 130, but at this point, when we applied for that and they approved the federal investment credit, nobody thought that would ever change at this point. And I'm not sure it's going to change. I think, like anything else that the administration is doing, they're putting it in abeyance at this point in time.
Correct.
So
optimistic we're going to get.
And I think the other issue is that the funding for the IRS and a number of IRS agents is declining. So the ability for them to review these applications is probably going to take longer as well, too. I just don't want to take the chance that if it doesn't come in, we can't go back and at least get a third of it. I think if I get the third, I can always pay that back when I get the investment credit. So.
Like the next best pivot we can make right now.
Exactly.
And is there any limit or any time frame on if that money potentially does come in, is when you can pay the other portion back? I mean, is there like a year from now, you say we're going to get that money in from the feds, this thing out, it goes through, plan A goes through, and you're going to pay back the money to right? Is there any time frame? Is there a cutoff?
I don't think it's ever happened, but more than likely, as soon as we get that credit back, we would just repay RIDE for the housing aid, because they budget that every year. So once they put that in the budget, so for example, last year I put a preliminary request in there for the housing aid that we were going to get, which was minus the 30% in credit, and was minus the 75 that we got, 1,000 we got from the state, because you can't double up on that. So we did get so that housing credit I got with paygo money. So I already got that housing aid money in already. So when I file the forms, which is due in July of this year, I would probably add the amount there so that I could get the additional housing aid. But I'm going to talk to RIDE before I do that.
You mentioned in previous months that you were not receiving electric bills for here.
I go in this morning.
How'd it go?
$7.
How much?
But it's only for Meeting House Lane. I didn't get anything for the school.
It was for how much?
$87.
For Meeting House Lane. So what entity is that?
The
It's exterior lights.
Yeah.
It's usually about 100.
They're not sending us a bill.
I talked to the energy consultant about that too, and I guess the Rhode Island Energy is all messed up.
Yeah. Interesting. Mr. McNamee, have you anything more to add?
I'm done.
Thank you so much. All right, on to committee reports, policy subcommittee. I believe we're going to be meeting in the month of June. There are some things we need to discuss. We will release a date and certainly make sure that it is posted publicly so parents and others can attend. Portsmouth School Committee Liaison Report. Mr. Mark.
Thank you. I'll be reporting for April and May. It was the timing of the meetings.
Yeah.
And a lot of the information from April carries over to May, so I'll just present it as one report if that's okay.
Sure.
In April, the committee recognized several students from all the schools for their recent all-state band and chorus selections. And they were working on approving the budget for 2026 in May, which was last night. It was provisionally approved, going to a final vote with the town next month. So that was good news. They also recognized students for seniors who made it into the National Honor Society, and Portsmouth High School students who also participated in Model United Nations program. And those students presented at the meeting, and it was really well done. And they spoke about the impact of the Model UN on them, and it was a really nice presentation during the meeting. There were some contracts renewed. Most of that was supplemental staff staffing. And they did approve a cell phone and electronic device policy last night as well, which basically says that they're not really allowed cell phones. And I think Ride had something to say about that today too, or the state, about cell phone policies. So I think that's kind of the trend, and that's the way that it's going. And that's pretty much everything from Portsmouth.
Excellent, Mark. Yes, it's interesting that they had that cell phone vote last night, knowing that the state of New York has banned cell phones within,
What's that?
within all educational facilities, right? All K to 8 or K to 12.
Oh, my gosh.
Signed by the governor and everything. All right, wellness committee liaison report, Ms. Sushi.
Well, we have our quarterly meeting scheduled for May 22nd at 3:30 p.m. And in the meantime, on May 20th, I am registered to do the Zoom meeting on assessing your local wellness policy. So I should have more to report at our next meeting.
Excellent, Sue. Thank you. Town Recreation Committee report. Mark.
Not much to report. Everything is status quo. The calendar is up and running, looking good, pretty full. I know there's a lot of discussion regarding pickleball courts and tennis courts. And I did get an update from Chief Petrin, and we decided on a spot for the new AED machine for Veterans Field, which will be installed imminently. The funds are in hand, and the materials have been ordered, so it's just a question of installation. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the low sign that says Dundry Brook Trail out there, and there's a little section that sort of comes to a point of grass that is really equidistant from all the fields, and that's where the AED is slotted to be installed. Solar power running with direct communication to police and fire. So that's going to be really great. Hopefully in the next few weeks, that's what we're looking to have out there before summer really begins.
Excellent. Might I also say you did an excellent job at opening day for the Little League.
Oh,
excellent speech.
thank you.
Thank you. Scholarship Subcommittee report. We have received our scholarships. I believe we have 9, which is roughly a third. We're still hovering around that third. We really want to cross over that 50% threshold, but we yet to do so. Myself and Mike will be meeting June the 3rd to determine the outcome of those scholarships, and we will be presenting them at our June meeting. So that is one of the more exciting meetings where we get to honor the youth and their commitment to not only community service, but also the great educational outcomes that they continue to pursue. And finally, item 8.6, the negotiation subcommittee report. At this point, we have exchanged our proposals, and our next meeting is next Wednesday, the 21st. Excellent. On to items 9.1. We will consider, discuss, and vote to approve transfers to the general fund, from the general fund to capital. Mr. McNamee, I will let you say your piece, and then we will have a vote.
Okay, so we're looking to transfer $400,000 from the general fund into the capital reserve fund. Those funds would be used for the HVAC projects and the library media center projects that we have scheduled to go in FY26. So that should, and you've got the projection included in there, so that should give us enough available funds, including the housing aid reimbursement, to get us through FY28 in terms of all our capital projects.
Excellent. So 150 of that is transfer from the 23 accumulated fund balance.
Right.
And then the 250,000
is from the East Bay Collaborative distribution.
Yes.
With that transfer, it's still going to leave us at our slight deficit that you speak to.
Well, the issue would be the remaining accumulated fund balance. So we would be looking at, after this transfer, with the slight deficit for this year, a projection of about 267,000 in accumulated surplus.
We'd have 267 there after the deficit. That's what we would still have it.
After the deficit and after the transfer of the 150.
Transfer the 150 or the 400. Sorry, the transfer of the 150 or the 400.
The 150, because the 250 is going directly into the
250 is already in, right?
Yeah.
Because that became from the collaborative solution. Sean, do we have to include that number in our vote, or is it just the 150 we'll be voting on?
it's the 400.
Okay, it's the 400. Anyone like to make a motion to transfer $400,000 from the general fund to the capital expenditure fund?
I'll make a motion.
Sounds good.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. All in favor of transferring $400,000 from the general fund to the capital expenditure fund? Aye. Excellent. The motion carries 5-0. Item 9.2, consider, discuss, and vote to approve the non-resident tuition increase. And I actually did some quick math. I apologize. 3% is $180. For some reason, I don't know why I had 6,200 in my head.
I was giving you the benefit of the doubt.
I wanted to make
Mr.
sure.
Mackey knew me right away.
You knew right away. I wanted to make sure that when we made the motion, we said numbers rather than percentages. Is that correct, Sean, or should we say percentages? How do you want to do the motion?
Yeah,
It
does not make a difference.
Excellent. Just to make sure. Anyone, what the heck?
I mean, I would just say that I feel like we don't have a ton of data on this. The voices that we have heard from tonight, here and via email and through your survey, were very clear that an increase would impact their enrollment here. I understand the delicacy of this, given where the town stands with budget. So, I mean, I would move to make a motion to increase the non-resident tuition rate for newly enrolling families to 3% increase.
And, right, can we piggyback it, or do we need to do a separate motion?
I mean, I think that's adequate. That actually does cover it all.
It does.
It doesn't cover the existing families.
It doesn't impact existing families, so they would stay at 6,000.
And I think that's a conversation we can have. I don't think it's enough time for families to be able to wrap their heads around that kind of a change. I
also like how you noted, we don't really have the data as to know what the outcome
what
would
that
be.
tipping point is going to be for folks.
Do I have a second to Amy's motion?
Can I ask a question?
You absolutely can.
So that would make the new ones.
Correct.
At
New.
6,180.
Correct.
Okay. And remain at 6 for the ongoing students,
Correct, for existing.
for existing. Then I would second that.
Any discussion?
I disagree with the motion. I will be voting no on that. I don't believe that this is a responsible motion at all. Again, the motion is to leave the current students at 32 of them at the current rate. Again, I've said this already, that our expenses keep going up. Why would we keep something at the same rate if our expenses are going up? I don't understand the philosophy.
You just don't. It is what it is. Thank you.
You don't what?
You don't understand. It's fine.
No, I don't understand the philosophy of why.
But why we discount empty seats?
What's that?
Why we discount empty seats?
No, why our finance director tells us that our health insurance has went up 12% and we're worried about going up $500.
Because what would happen, Michael, if we woke up and we had, instead of $240,000, $0?
You know something? That's
we're saying, Amy said in her presentation of the motion, that we don't have the data. And I've also said, I am happy to see if we can find those consulting dollars and put you as the chair of that committee to do a widespread research project as to what the implications are of lowering, raising, what the thresholds are. But you're fine to say your piece. You can vote as such. You don't have to tell us how you're going to vote prior to the vote.
I am not going to hide that. I mean, yes, it's going to be public, and I will vote no on it. I don't think that's enough. I really don't think that's enough. This program's been in effect for what, 4 or 5 years that we started to increase, and during those times, we've never gone up on the rate, even though our expenses have gone up. And you're continuing down that path where
well, no, we're increasing it 3%, and you're voting against that, which is fine.
For only new.
Correct.
So basically, everybody that's already there, again, they're going to continue to stay at the same rate, while now our expenses have gone up, are going to continue to go up.
But that's not in perpetuity. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying
it's
we
for
can never
1 year.
consider an increase for the currently enrolled families. I don't feel comfortable doing that tonight, given where we are in the middle of May, when families are already, they're already having, I mean, they've had these discussions and committed.
As we heard from multiple people, and the 62% of the 18 that said an increase would be detrimental.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't consider, we don't have adequate information right now.
62% of 18 is 9 people.
No, 62% of 32 people.
No, that's of the people that responded, I believe.
Oh, no, you're right, it is. But still.
So nine people, you want to base all of our decisions based on 9 people that they don't know whether they would come back or not.
Listen, Michael, if you don't want to increase the tuition for the newly enrolled students, that's up to you. But Amy presented keeping the existing the same and the newly enrolled up 3%. Sue has seconded the motion. If there's no further discussion, can vote. All in favor?
Aye. No.
Aye. 4-1, it passes. Thank you all for your input in that this evening. We will consider a motion to discuss and match the Doris Simmons Scholarship amount of $150, bringing the total to $300. We've done this year in and year out. Apparently we got to find the trust doesn't have the match, or whatever the case is.
I don't know. We got to find out what those funds are. They're on the town side somewhere.
Okay.
No.
Do I have a motion? Because this is one of the scholarships we present in the June meeting. So do I have a motion to increase the amount from 150 to 300?
I'll make a motion to do that.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. The motion carries. And are there any requests for information from administration or legal counsel? I would make one. Lori, if you can include some of the things that you shared today in your presentation as to next steps. So not just the entire board kind of knows what those steps are, so we can have a discussion at future meetings as to how we can best prepare.
Charter?
Yes.
Charter piece? Okay, sure.
Other than that, I would consider a motion to adjourn.
Can we have
John?
let's just vote.
No. We voted on the increase of the Doris Simmons. And then I just asked if we could have a. Oh, no. No, that's just information request. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?